Joe Rogan had done a piece on what is holding up Cowboy and Conor. And I really only saw the headline of this. So if you guys have better information, right, I'd almost rather not have it because I'd like to speculate purely on the headline. But the headline said what was holding up an official announcement for Cowboy versus McGregor is that the UFC wanted to put it in a co-main event spot, with the rationale of that being it's got to be on pay-per-view and it doesn't happen to be a title fight. And we want our pay-per-views to conclude with a world title fight. That's very interesting in a lot of ways. If we were to take that, all right, I will more than happily come in and tell you I have my own beliefs for why that's in a co-main event spot. But let's just look at it for this. Let's look at it for the evidence that we have. Because I'm not sure that this is right. And you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know until you tried to hold a pay-per-view and you didn't have a belt on the line. Okay, the promotion knows and understands this and sees numbers that the rest of us do not. So we do need to concede to them. Something tells me that's a really big fight. Something tells me that everybody wants to see that fight. And I also understand the marketing angle and the importance of belts. I have always been a proponent of the interim championship. I like it. And I like it because I thought that I understood it. I started to not be able to make as compelling of arguments for you guys when some of the parameters of the interim championship started to get a little bit off course, such as the interim champion not being guaranteed a shot at the undisputed champion, or the interim champion losing the interim championship without ever getting into the... I mean, there started to be some stuff that happened where it made it a little bit tougher. And you go, okay, look, if we're just going to make this a very prestigious and honorable belt at the end of an evening, that's okay too. I would just suggest for you guys that we bring back the super fight belt. Do you guys remember what that was? I know you hardcores most definitely do, but should I explain that for everybody? Back when the UFC first started, and it was owned by a company known as SEG, S-E-G, Seymour Entertainment Group, they didn't have any kind of championships. There was no divisions back then. There was one division. And so what they were doing is they were holding tournaments, and there wasn't weigh-ins, there wasn't all of these great things that we have now. But at the end of the night, you would win the tournament, and that would be, okay, now you're the tournament champion. And then when they moved to UFC 2, okay, there's another tournament. So if you win that, then you're a tournament champion. And the same guy happened to win them both, so now he's a two-time tournament champion. But they didn't even have the classifications or the ability yet to build divisions and crown a champion of those divisions. So along the forming way, they then started something called the Super Fight, which was really just the main event. If you could qualify for the main event spot, if you were two featured athletes that everybody wanted to see, they would call it a Super Fight, which came with a unique time set and also came with this beautiful belt and a crowning moment at the end of the night. The athletes would take that just to show you that it worked, to show you that there was a major prestige. Not only would athletes then begin calling for super fights with somebody, if the athletes went out and they were to get sponsors, if they were to make promotional DVDs or appearances, they would list that as their credentials. I was a this, and I was a this, and I was a this, and I was a UFC super fight champion. And it was real. And it was awesome. It was really cool. And it worked. And nobody was getting duped or fooled or slighted. And there was no tomfoolery that had to happen at the office the next couple of weeks. There was no press releases that needed to come out to try to cover for the story. There was no drama and there was no dialogue. It was very clear. This is a one-night event. Very cool and very fun. And a lot of guys would want to come back to defend their super fight championships, but it wasn't a real thing. There wasn't actually a lineage that went along with that. But the promotion did honor it sometimes. I can remember specifically Ken Shamrock being a super fight participant. I might have that wrong. Yes, he did win it. He had a super fight with Dan Severn. Boom, he choked him out. But he was a participant, so then he was able to compete in the next super fight. We don't have to set up those kind of rules. There doesn't have to be those types of confines. We could just call it what it is, which this is the super fight. And here's what's on the line. And the rules are going to be slightly different, meaning the time limit is going to be 5 5. I mean, it serves every purpose, in my opinion. From the marketing all the way to the prestige, all the way to what the boys in the back are willing to do because of the honor and the uniqueness and the esteem that comes with it. And I think it would just be a little straighter and clearer for everybody to understand. You guys might even remember, if you're the hardcore fans, remember how cool the Super Fight belt was? The Super Fight belt was a cooler looking belt than the world title belt, even though the world title belt was more prestigious. I mean, there's a lot on it. You might be thinking I'm just sitting over here talking about belts. Who cares about belts? Believe me, people care about belts. They do. Particularly the participants. They care about belts. Okay, the cowboy wants the buckle at the end of the night, whether he acts like he does or not. Believe me, it matters. I think that would be a good way to solve it. So when you look at the Conor fight versus Cowboy, if you've already got a disputed champion out there and you've already decided who your undisputed champion is going to be, if you got to have a belt, bring back the super fight. Try it one time. Try it one time and then come back and say, Chael, you're a genius. Why didn't we think of this on our own? It will work. The people will love it. They absolutely will. Take a closer look at that. I've heard some other speculations from some other people. And the way a contract would generally work, look, if you're not a champion, you had some great contract that you lose the belt. When you come back, you don't now have that same level of financial participation. Your contract automatically changes. But the same thing goes with a main event fight. But I can tell you're actually wrong on this. Even if you're smart to the business and you're hip to the way these contracts work, Conor's not going to work that way. And they're not even going to try to work that way with Conor. Conor's going to go, then don't use me. Call somebody else. If we're going to defer back to the contract that I never read, call somebody else. Okay, great. Hey, we won't defer to the contract. What's it going to take? I mean, they're going to have a little bit of they've got a different understanding and a different negotiation there. So that's not the answer either. When I look at that fight, I'll tell you what, I got no problem with it in a co-main event. Never have. I do think I look at this sport differently on occasions. I am so close to the trees that I do miss the forest, and I am the kind of fan that you can always count on. I just want to see the fights. That's true. And I do have a different level of anticipation and excitement at times, but either way, I'm not missing it. I'm just not. So I do follow that golden rule of treat others the way you want to be treated. I look within myself and how am I going to respond, and then I think that other people are going to react the same way. Most of the time, I'm right. I do have a very good pulse, a very good thumb on what the rest of you like, but that's most of the time. It's not infallible. I do get them wrong. I'd like to hear from you guys. I can just, for me, if Conor McGregor's fighting, something special is happening. If Cowboy Cerrone is fighting, there's something special to see. If you're putting Cowboy and Conor in there together, particularly knowing that this is a top contender's fight, knowing the storylines that are going to be built around, man, I don't give a goddamn where you put it on the card. Never have. Never have I cared about all of those different things. I just want to see the match. Don't care if it's scheduled for 15 minutes. Don't care if it's 25. Don't care if it's unified rules or you want to make up some other weird rules. Don't care. Want to see those guys go in there. That's me, but I could be missing something. I was very disappointed in Australia when Gastelum and Whitaker did not go in there and compete. I was also very thrilled to be at a show where Anderson Silva and Israel Adesanya were going to go in there and figure out their business. So maybe I'm a little bit easier. And I really would like you guys to give me your thoughts on that. Do you have to have a belt? And look within. Don't just say, no, I don't. Put those guys together. I want to see them fight. No. Actually analyze yourself. Do you feel better and feel differently and get more compelled and more excited? Because this is a business and you are the consumer. Do you need that belt? And I would like the answer because I think you guys are with me. No, we want to see fights we want to see. Belt's the sprinkle on top of the sundae. Belt's the cherry on the sundae. Sometimes I eat the cherry. Sometimes I throw it the hell out and go right for the ice cream. I'm still buying the sundae. I pull through the drive-through line. They tell me they don't have any cherries to put on my sundae. I'm not expecting them to sell it to me for 25 cents less. I'm still buying the sundae. So what if I didn't get a cherry? My own thoughts. Tell me if I'm right.